Welcome to episode 28 of YOUx2, where we're on an adventure getting to know the two of us that are living this human experience. This little character that we're playing here as a human, and the actor behind this character, that powerful, supernatural, eternal spirit being that's made of unconditional love. Hey everybody, it's your buddy Zen, and I'm a wake-up artist. My passion is helping us remember who we really are, and also that connection that we have with the Creator and with the spirit world. In the last episodes, we've been looking over the different types of heartbreak that we experience as a human and the impact it has on our experience here, as well as the impact that it has with us connecting to our higher selves. We've already looked at the heartbreak of being bullied or being abandoned and left behind, that heartbreak that we have with our personal and intimate romantic relationships and all the wonderful things that we can learn from those experiences. And in this episode, I'm going to get bold and I'm going to talk about how sexuality impacts our human experience here and connecting to the spirit world. Talking about sexuality in the United States can be a bit taboo, although we have come a very long way here in the last probably decade or so. And of course, it varies by individual and by how, different countries look at it. I mean, it can vary by continent and by country. And you can tell just by looking at television programs from, a different location about how more open and freer they are in talking about those types of things and showing different pieces of the body as well. You would think that's kind of odd, knowing that United States, we actually were born and created on a intention of having freedom of speech and being able to express yourselves more. But that's probably a subject for a different type of channel. In the presence process, Michael Brown mentions that our emotional development happens from birth to around 7 years old. And then we move into our mental development from 7 to around 14. And then we eventually move into our physical development from 14 to 21. Now, as we go through that physical development and hit puberty, we feel like we're on a roller coaster of emotions and having all these things thrown at us with all those emotions and chemicals and hormones just flying all over the place as we are experiencing that. And we go through that for several years, it feels like. And of course, there's a lot of heartbreak that happens from that period of time, depending on what we individually go through. I mean, sometimes you might develop like your breast earlier than others, or have your menstrual cycle earlier than others, or it happens like at school or some other terrifying event where, it comes out of nowhere. Or, for males, you can have, like, if the wind blows just right in class, you get a little erection and you have to carry a notebook around to protect yourself from being made fun of and shamed, right? And, of course, there's always those that develop later than others, and then you get razzed for that. You don't get body hair the same times as others, or you don't develop as much. And, of course, even if your voice stays higher longer, all of that stuff just adds into our, terrifying experiences in our childhood and teenage years. And especially as you start to get the emotions around, for other individuals, with so much being told to be, shameful about and keep hidden and keep quiet, we keep a lot of it bottled up inside of it. And that can be very challenging, especially in the case where you're attracted to another, the gender of the same sex, which is what happened in my case. We had just moved from Colorado to Texas, and I was like 13 years old. And so out of the blue, boom, puberty hit. And I had all these emotions coming in, and I had no idea why I was attracted to men. And right around that same period of time, my mom also became a born-again Christian. So my brother and I also became born-again Christians with her. My dad was trying to do his own business, and he had no time for really anything but work, work, work. So there we were, going into this whole new addition to weirdness. I mean, it's weird enough, everything we go through as teenagers, but that added into it just kind of added a tornado to my life, because at the same time I started feeling all these experiences, I was hearing through the Christian church that those things were an abomination. And at first I thought that was cool because, the abominable snowman, he's just so unique and different and mysterious that must mean it's good. But I was quickly corrected that they did not think it was cool at all. And regardless of who we're attracted to, all of us have this fear that we go through of, being rejected by our friends, our family, by God, on whoever we're attracted to, and the feelings that we're having, because, a lot of times in organized religions, they don't want you to talk about sex, so it's kept very, very, hampered. Also, I mean, regardless if you're an organized religion or not, also, depending on what happens, like if you end up sleeping with somebody when you're young and people in school find out, you get labeled with, being different types of things. You get all these, titles and nicknames that are assigned to you, which just, again, add to the stress of childhood and being a teenager. And it's a very rough time for, teenagers during that time. I mean, it's like, they're on a roller coaster and their arms are flying all over the places. They're getting yanked in all these different directions. And then we, as we're older, we kind of somehow forget the experiences we went through, as teenagers. And we have this like, you shouldn't be doing that. And, all this stuff, instead of being understanding and compassionate for them, we're like judging and being harsh, instead of being like, oh my gosh, we need to give you so much leeway and so much help and so much love and, positive reinforcement for the wonderful things they are, instead of all the don't, because that, of course, always pushes us in the opposite direction anyway, right? But such a love that we can give to teenagers, because going through that period of time, any time of our life really, but especially during those teenage years where we're trying to fit in, we do things because we don't want to. We want to fit in. We want to be accepted. And maybe even more so, we do a lot of things because we don't want to be rejected. So we end up trading in a lot of our self-worth and who we are for that retail price of being accepted by the outside world. And we do sacrifice a lot of who we are. Jamie Same mentioned in her book, The 13 Original Mothers, it's then necessary to heal the part of ourselves that is willing to accept any interactions with others as a substitute for self-esteem. And I love that awareness, because we do hide ourselves away. We do trade ourselves in for that outside acceptance. It only lasts for so long, and I know I was going through all this in the 80s, back in the 80s. I know I'm old, but the teenagers of this generation have it so much more, because they have social media and they have all that online bullying and, all this other stuff that we didn't have even back then. And I know teenage suicide is more common than it really needs to be, right? And I can imagine if we loved each other more unconditionally, especially the younger of us, can you imagine after a generation or two of that, just how amazing and how different the world would be in all that? Asking, have you asked forgiveness for that? Okay, good. Then we don't need to talk about that again, which is what we hear a lot from organized religion. Is that enough? Because I can't imagine, when I think like Jesus or Buddha or, any of the great masters, these people that were beings of unconditional love, when I imagine them asking those things and acting that way, I can't see it. I see more like Jesus would be like, come here and give us a big hug and tell us how much that they love us and that how perfect that they see us in their eyes. That's how I see unconditional love. And eventually, all that stuff that we go through, that terror that we go through in our early years, makes it out of our subconscious and, out into our face in sometime in our life. I mean, I'm grateful that I did not contemplate suicide when I was a teenager, but it did make its way out, into my face when I was 22, where one of my best friends had made the moves on me, and I welcomed it because I really cared for him. It's something that I really wanted deep inside of me, even though I was, my mind was saying, no, no, this is wrong. This is an abomination, right? All that stuff, all of that. And I, still begged God, the Christian God, to forgive me because I wanted to change. I wanted not to do things that I was being told that upset, the God of all things, right? And from 13 until I was 29 when I came out, for 16 years, I had that self-judgment and that self-loathing and even kind of a hatred toward myself during all that time. But when I eventually came out, and my family did so good with what was available back then, because this was still the 90s, like early 90s, when I came out to them. And my dad had, he was, my parents had divorced and he was living in another state. But my brother and my mom, we still lived in the same city. So when I came out to my mom, they both had known about my suicidal thoughts back when I was 22. And so when I told my mom that I was going to live the life of a gay man, whatever that meant for me, rather than killing myself, she said, I would much rather have you gay than dead. So even though that sounds, a little rough, it was like, no, it was a big thing because she is a very godly woman. And so that meant a lot to me that she said that. And when I came out to my brother, he was in the military at the time and also Christian, and with his wife and kids, but I went and came out to them as well. And my brother asked me, well, have you ever been with a woman? And when I told him no, he said, well, you have to, experience that first before you make a decision. And of course, then I go, well, have you ever been with a man? So our experience of sexuality and our approach to it, of course, impacts our lives in so many different ways. One huge thing that jumped out to me in, reviewing and evaluating all that from my life was that shame and that guilt keep us from that connection to the spiritual world. Because when we're in this noisy chaos of shame and guilt and judgment and conditional love, then we can't connect to or hear the spirit world, which is of unconditional love and joy and peace and laughter. So with all that noise that we have, with all of that, that keeps us from being able to hear clearly from that spiritual world and go, more deeply into that area of our life. And, our experiences, our beliefs around sex and sexuality, it, rolls out into all of our life. And when we look at, like for me and my life, when I looked at the reflections that were coming back and all that mirror of everyone that's out there, it was number one and number two and number four. All my ex-boyfriends, those three looked outside of our relationship, out of our committed relationship, for their, additional sexual needs. And it gives us this message that, wow, I must not be enough for them if they're looking outside for those things. And so we don't realize that that mirror is reflecting back for us, and that actually their actions don't have a whole lot to do with us because they're also looking through their life through their own lenses. And as I mentioned in one of the last episodes, when you look at relationships and how, they looked outside of your relationship and you feel like it's you, really you can't make them happy if they're unhappy on the inside, because we can't do that. They have to choose to be happy on the inside first. And same with us, because we could give someone the world and they could still choose to be unhappy. And someone could give us the world and we could still choose to be unhappy. I feel like this human adventure is an adventure in self-worth and our worthiness. We come here and we forget who we really are, a powerful, supernatural, eternal spirit beings made of unconditional love, these mighty, mighty beings. And we come here and we experience the opposites of that. We experience what it might feel like to be small and worthless and limited and restricted and not enough for others, and experience all that. But once we experience that, as we wake up more and more and more and remember who we really are, then we see that contrast. When we understand, by experiencing that smallness, we understand what greatness is. I give an examples a lot about air. You breathe air a lot and we don't realize what air is until we're 6 feet underwater looking up at air going, oh, that's air because this is non-air, and experiencing these opposites of that other thing. We understand more deeply and we have a greater understanding of all that. So we really get this awareness of our greatness as we experience all this heartbreak that we've been talking about. In the next episode, I want to look at, when we're hit with these waves of confusion about all these rights and wrongs in the world, because everyone has their opinions and they differ. It's like everyone has like all these different opinions, represented by all those, different symbols back there. It's like, well, which one is right? Which one is wrong? So we'll give some guidance on how we can gain some clarity around that. In the meantime, if you are looking for more messages of love from above, in addition to these YOUx2 videos, I also put out weekly energy updates for each zodiac sign, also monthly readings for each zodiac sign, and a few other types of videos throughout the month. So if you don't want to miss out on any of those and be notified immediately when they become available, if you give this video a little thumbs up and click the like button, also click the subscribe button, and that gives you access to the notification bell. And when you go in there, if you select the all option, then you will be notified of any new videos that come out on this channel. Also, doing those things, it helps spread the love and it helps my channel grow in significant ways. Because when you like a video, share a video, comment on a video, and especially subscribing to the channel, doing those things makes the YouTube algorithm so excited it does want to share the videos of this channel with other people as well. So if you do feel inspired to do any of those things, I am very grateful. Also, the readings I put out are general readings, and I do offer actual personal readings that will give you more specific answers and information for your specific life. If you're interested in that, all that information is listed in the description box below. All right, you amazing souls, as you go throughout this next week, please know that every second of every day of your life that you are unconditionally loved by the creator of all things. And of course, I love you too. Have an amazing week. We'll be talking soon. And in the meantime, you hang in there and you take care.